Okay, let's talk about Jupiter as Atmakaraka now. And I'm going to read the description given by Parashara. Large-bodied is Jupiter and also tawny-haired and eyed, of kapha nature, intelligent, and proficient in all shastras. Okay, so Jupiter is a slow-moving planet, and just like Saturn, it's one of the planets of our destiny. Jupiter is broad-minded, and it can see a higher perspective of things. For example, if we take the many gods in Hinduism, they reflect Jupiter in its highest form, because Jupiter can see validity, can see perspective in all those gods, because it can see the higher perspective of everything. Now, Jupiter is a masculine planet, but it's also kapha, so that would give it a more feminine way of acting. So it has a good balance between masculine and feminine energies. It's of the Brahman caste, so it's associated with holiness, and it's receptive to inspiration. Then, like the moon, it's a planet that looks everywhere equally. So that makes it very accepting. It gives it insights, makes it receptive to truth. And it's a planet with great understanding. It's also a sattvic planet. So it's a planet of purpose, and it motivates us according to our inner nature. It's inspiring, fulfilling, and it likes to share wisdom as well. Now, Jupiter is the planet of happiness. So if we look at Jupiter in the D9, that allows us to see the level of fulfillment that a person has. Now, what is Jupiter's job? Well, its job is to bring wisdom, happiness, to be a guru, to share knowledge, to share that connection with the divine, learning and gaining understanding from the world or of the world, and having capacity to understand through contemplation. Its ultimate goal is union with the divine. It's moksha, liberation. And for example, if we take the study of astrology, Jupiter can be the astrologer that has that sattvic vision. So it's going to be looking at all aspects of life from a higher perspective, whereas Venus would be the astrology that does predictions, because Venus is more of a worldly planet. It's the guru of the Asuras. So it's going to be the predictive astrologer. Now, Jupiter rules over gurus, priests and priestesses, children, and the paternal grandfather. It's of the ether element, so it has that potential to expand the self and to be receptive to wisdom. Jupiter also rules the ears, so it has capacity to listen. It can also give clairaudience, or being able to hear divine sounds such as the Om. And Jupiter is also connected to Ganesh, and Ganesh is the remover of obstacles. And it's said that obstacles can be removed with the Om sound as well. Now, Jupiter Atmakarakas like to be philosophical about life. They tend to talk about spirituality. They tend to like reading about spirituality a lot as well. According to Jaimini, Jupiter doesn't talk much. So they will talk if it's something that's important. They do not like small talk. And Jupiter Atmakarakas can be spiritual teachers. Jupiter is a planet that tends to be optimistic. It's about expansion. It's about making people feel better. And Jupiter Atmakarakas tend to have faith in people. They're also interested in relieving the suffering of others, and also they're going to have an interest in how the universe works. They tend to be gentle, receptive, kind, and very generous with their time and their knowledge. They're going to be peace-loving as well, but they should be careful about not being taken advantage of, because they may be a bit too nice. Now, if Jupiter is hurt, especially if it's with Mars, they might push ideas on others. But if Jupiter is well placed, it's going to share knowledge, and it's going to do it in a very gentle way, because it can always see the higher perspective. So it's not going to push ideas on others. Now, what's the appearance of a Jupiter Atmakaraka or Jupiter on the ascendant? Jupiter aspect in the ascendant Lord. Okay, so Jupiter types tend to be large-bodied, tall. They tend to have smooth, large foreheads and sweet expressions, especially when Jupiter is in its own sign or exalted in Cancer. And they tend to have a golden hue in their eyes. Now, what are the careers that Jupiter Atmakarakas tend to be involved in? So they tend to be therapists, counselors, because they like to help people, scientists. Remember, it's a Brahman planet, so they're going to want to share knowledge and dig into knowledge. And they could be spiritual teachers as well. So they could be educators about spiritual things. Especially as we mentioned in the Venus section, for example, a Venus Atmakaraka, or when a moon is full or waxing, and it's somebody's Atmakaraka, they can be teachers as well. Now for Jupiter, it's more about spiritual teachings. Okay, so they can be involved in wisdom-related businesses as well. And Jupiter also rules over finances. It rules over wealth. So for example, if somebody has Jupiter ruling the second or in the second, somebody could be in the banking business, or they could be counselors about wealth. Okay, so those are the careers for Jupiter. Now let's talk about the remedies for an afflicted Jupiter. And what do we mean by an afflicted Jupiter? So for example, having Jupiter debilitated in Capricorn, or Jupiter starved in Mercury or Venus signs, or even Jupiter Graha aspected by those signs, by those planets, say by Mercury or Venus, by its enemies. So a remedy for that could be chanting the mantra Om Rim Brihaspataye Namaha, or chanting the Ganesh mantra Om Gan Ganapataye Namo Namaha to remove obstacles. The study of spiritual books, visiting ashrams or spiritual communities, also keeping a gratitude journal or keeping track of dreams. Feeding the poor, which is also good for Saturn, or donating without showing off. Also, if somebody has Jupiter in Virgo, which is a barren sign, or Mercury starving Jupiter, that might give little capacity to bear children. Of course, we need to look at other things such as the state of Jupiter, the fifth house, the fifth Lord, the D7. Okay, but remedies can be applied when Jupiter's in that situation. Also, if Jupiter is with Venus, there might be a struggle between personal desires and their values. So it's good to apply those remedies, such as the mantras we mentioned, reading spiritual books, visiting spiritual communities, etc. Okay, now let's talk about Sagittarius and Pisces Swamsa, the Swamsas for Jupiter. Okay, so let's begin with Sagittarius. Again, let's remember that can apply to any planet as Atmakaraka in the D9, in the sign of Sagittarius. Okay, so Jaimini says in Sagittarius, while preceding a fall from a vehicle and a height. Okay, so Jaimini talks about falling from heights. And this refers to Sagittarius sometimes taking on more than they can handle, because Jupiter is all about expansion. That can cause them to fall from grace or to lose their reputation. That's what Jaimini means by falling from a height. Now, Sagittarius is a fire sign. If we can imagine the archer that wants to shoot as far as they can, it's a very ambitious sign. And sometimes they can become a little bit too ambitious. And that's when they can fall from grace. So what is their task? Their task is not to take on too much and to build a healthy belief system in order not to fall. Now, the fall can happen because they take on belief systems without looking into them. And they might try to push others to believe the same. So they need to be careful with that. And Sagittarius Swamshas tend to value justice as well and have high integrity. Of course, let's remember it's a Jupiter-ruled sign. And a good remedy for a difficult Sagittarius, so that would be a Sagittarius that has difficult Rashi aspects. It would be wearing turquoise color or turquoise gemstones as well. And now let's move on to Pisces Swamsha. So what does Jaimini say about Pisces? In Pisces, elevation, perpetual dharma, and kaivalyam. Sorry about that pronunciation. Pisces Swamsha shows that the native is finishing up a cycle of karma. So they're going to see a lot of transformation in this life. Remember that Pisces is the end of the zodiac. It's the sign of liberation, of moksha. Okay, so it's going to be a sign of transformation, of getting rid of everything so one can experience liberation. Okay, so it's a sign that can give great spiritual progress if there are other indications. And the task of a Pisces Swamsha would be to surrender to something bigger. Doing good deeds, being firm in your duty, being motivated by liberation, by moksha. Okay, so as we said, Pisces is in the last sign. It's a sign of liberation and of surrender. That's the main word for Pisces, surrender. And the meaning of kaivalyam is separateness. So it's a state of liberation. It's a state that the consciousness of an individual achieves by realizing that it is separate from matter. So realizing that you're not just matter, but you're part of a whole. And that's what Pisces is about seeing that unity with everything. Now, a hurt Pisces can have escapist tendencies. And it can isolate in order to escape from life. So if Pisces is hurt, if it has bad Rashi aspects, for example, they will have to learn to deal with reality. So surrendering, but without escaping reality. And it's a Brahman sign, so that shows it's a sign that's about spiritual development. So the key word for Pisces, learning to surrender and learning not to escape difficulties in life.